On the last day of British summertime, we met up in Aberfoyle for one of our regular gravel rides. We had 12 gravellers turn up with a mix of some well-kent faces and 4 group virgins. It's always a tough start to leave the car park and go straight into what is effectively a 3-mile climb to the top of the Duke's Pass. This encompasses the hill climb, which is done in the Duke's Weekender. This route is a real treat for loch lovers as we pass Loch Drunkie, Loch Katrine, Loch Katrine, Loch Artlet, Lockon and ultimately Loch Ard. The weather on the day started a little bit overcast, but we never really get any rain. I was disappointed to have to cancel this ride last week due to the storm, especially when the weather on the day ended up being so nice, but felt at the time that it was best to do so for safety reasons. If you're enjoying this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel. Thanks. If you'd like to follow any of these routes, you can pick up the GPX files by following me on Strava at Douglas Gilligan RACC. Having climbed so much, we had a fair bit of altitude to play with, and we had a nice long sweeping descent down to Loch Drunkie, which is always a lovely sight to see. It's a popular spot and there's always a van or two to be seen. I've said it before, but autumn was my favourite time to cycle, and I think everyone commented on the fantastic colour show from the fallen leaves which carpeted many of the trails. Out with us in this ride for the first time were Drew, Clive, Graham, Bill and Kirsty. If you're planning on doing this route, it's worth remembering that cars are allowed to use it, although they can only use it in one direction, whereas cyclists can travel in both directions. Thankfully they've started posting signs to that effect, which may hopefully help stop motorists berating cyclists about it being a one-way path. It's not just cars you need to look out for though. These lads got a wee bit of a fright when we passed them at a pretty decent speed. This is a nice wee wooded section which pops you out towards the bottom of the Duke's Pass main road towards Loch Katrine. You're then on a short section of road which takes you down to the Ackley Hotel with Loch Ackley in the background. Malky and George weren't hanging about here, unlike the local livestock who were certainly enjoying a more sedately paced Saturday morning. In behind the hotel is another nice little trail which leads you over a bridge and out towards the Loch Katrine access road. This is the start of the cycle path which follows the north shore of Loch Katrine. It's a fantastic path and bikes can be hired at the southeastern end of the loch. From here we had about 13 miles to the Lochs Cafe, where we were heading for lunch. We had a wee bit of an easterly tailwind pushing us along, but most of the time we were in the trees and not getting much benefit from it. We were to find out about it when we turned west at the head of the loch though, when it became quite a headwind. The cycle round the loch is very picturesque and you can get some great images, although the surface water on the day was causing a few issues with my camera lenses. Our leading pack missed this turn off and we had to call them back. Off the cycle path to the left is a wee trail which drops you down to the loch side. It's a great wee path, one not to be missed, and it was surprisingly quite a bit drier than I had expected. These views are towards the northwest of Loch Katrine and Lochs. We were in a quite elevated position here and I got a strong wind warning from the drone controller, so I turned her round and brought her back, having only reached a state of mild panic. Fortunately, she's surprisingly capable in the wind despite being such a small portable drone. Again, it's worth remembering that cars can use this path as well, although I certainly wouldn't fancy driving it. There are some lovely waterfalls, wooded sections and stunning views across the loch. It's such a pretty place that Queen Victoria commissioned a royal cottage to be built on its southern shore. It's not very often that you'll see a car, but they are a wee bit like buses in that respect. You won't see one for ages and then two come along in quick succession. With only 3 miles to go to the cafe, Malky and I reached the most westerly tip of the loch and turned east to head to Lochs, only to be met by a quite rude headwind. We got our heads down and were soon at the pier. The cafe, which was closed for a wee while, is now under new management and they serve up some really nice fare, with a decent selection of tasty beers to boot. After much deliberation I plumped for a chicken burger and an IPA which totally hit the spot. Even better, Stu picked up the tab as I had driven him up there. Happy days. After lunch, again we had the advance party missing the turn and we had to gather them back. This was a precursor of things to come, but more of that later. This is another section not to be missed. It affords some lovely views back over towards Loch and the surrounding hills in the background, which are beautifully sunlit here. There's quite a bit of climbing on this section, but there are also some nice flowy descents as you drop back down towards the main road. Malky, our local guide for the day, also pointed us into another new wee track directly opposite this one, which led us to the main road at the entrance to Lockon. We knew that there were some logging operations happening now, but also knew that there would be no work as it was a weekend, so we headed on with our fingers crossed that our route would all be passable. The Lockon section of the route is quite lumpy with several small bumps to go over, but it is very pretty. We soon came across the beautiful smell of freshly cut pine and some of the machinery responsible for it. The gravel road was fairly cut up, which slowed our speed, made progress slithery and sketchy, and certainly challenged our bike handling skills. Thankfully we managed to make it through the mud with everyone upright, so well done all. We also had a full complement of gravelleurs, but that was about to change. At this point I decided to push on and get the drone up. I cycled on for quite a bit and actually wondered if I'd taken a wrong turn, as I didn't recognise one part of the road. Thankfully I hadn't, and managed to get these shots. By going further than usual I confused the rest of the team, and this resulted in us losing Clive and Drew. Clive had told me earlier that he was familiar with the route and had loaded the GPX file into his head unit though, so we were fairly confident that both him and Drew would be okay. There's a really nice wee single track section here off to the left of the road. I was a bit worried that it might be overgrown, but we decided to give it a go. I headed off with Stu in front and Kirsty behind me. Kirsty ended up deciding it was a little bit too technical for her and headed back to the road. The track was quite overgrown, but just manageable, and regrouping at the bottom we were another person down. Again, I would recommend that wee section, it really is good fun. We then messed up and took a wrong turn, only realising after quite a long descent, which of course meant that we had to retrace our steps and climb back up. If anyone chooses to follow this route, please ignore the turn towards Lochard at 34.4 miles and continue on towards Aberfoyle. We were soon back on track, but the next time we regrouped we were another person down, and not knowing that Bill had stopped for a pee, we were beginning to wonder if we were being followed by a monster who was picking us off one by one. At this point Mark asked me if it was a snuff movie I was making. Thankfully I'd only promised not to drop anyone on the ride and didn't mention not losing anyone. We had another great day. It was a relief to see the car park, and even more of a relief to realise that there was no monster when we saw everyone who had started out with us that morning. And the ride by the numbers, we covered a lumpy 39 miles with almost 3,900 feet of climbing.